Welcome to TrueNAS Tech Talk, the last episode at the end of February 2026. We've got a few high-profile items to cover today. We got a new hotfix. We got some changes coming to Smart support to announce. Ooh, stay tuned for that. Debut of an official Proxmox plugin and some much sought-after application updates. An action-packed episode ahead. Let's dive right in. Welcome back this week, everybody. Be sure, of course, to like and subscribe. Do all the usual YouTube things. Otherwise, I might need to make Chris daily drive a Mac for a week, which actually that may not be a bad idea, Chris. You know, I'm kind of liking this one.
I was going to say,
enjoy that.
You've been trying to get me onto Linux for a while. Now you want to make me try a Mac?
Well, you know,
I don't know.
I'm using my daily Mac as my daily driver, but I have my Linux gaming system. So again, different purposes and all that. You need both. I think you need one of each.
Okay.
We'll get there. We'll work on Chris.
We'll get that. I hear the dark side has cookies.
It does have cookies. They're pretty tasty too. It's nice.
All right. Well.
Okay. Well, hey, we had some exciting news this week. I think we just did a big release last week and you challenged folks to find those edge cases. And so sure enough, we put out a hotfix. Tell us about that, Chris. What happened?
Yeah, we made that little comment. We said, let's take a little over-under here on how long it is until somebody surfaces a new bug. How long is it going to be, right? And, well, I don't recall if we ever put any money down on that, but we'll have to see who's going to collect. But we did do a quick little hotfix there. So 2510.2.1, the first little hotfix there. It's just a handful of little fixes in there. One of them is a fix for some NIC bonding issues, which was pointed out by somebody on Upgrade that they said, hey, it broke my NIC team pretty much immediately and they had to revert. So that one should be corrected. We apologize for that. There were also some of those wonderful edge cases that were found around those SMB validation errors for legacy shares and a couple of cosmetic things. But then one piece that was supposed to be in the hotfix or the original bundle in the 2510.2 and didn't make it in because of some strange Jira build issues, I believe, is there is a fix for NFS version 4 that has to do with how it's counting sort of those change ID values for NFS v4. This is really important for those of you who are using VMware ESX or VMware vSphere, because that lets it actually understand when it's doing these tiny little incremental changes. This sort of surfaced when you had a really high-speed network. Now, back in the day, this would have been kind of hard to get past because you'd have to be running, something faster than 10 gig, or maybe you'd see it on 10 gig during a period of really low network congestion. But this would be a sporadic issue. You'd see it after trying to clone a VM when you would use one of the fast ZFS cloning primitives or something like that. But now with 25 gig, 40 gig, people would see it more commonly. We've actually corrected this. This required a little bit of upstream work in ZFS to expose an underlying ZFS counter in there. Because again, ZFS being atomic, it knows it's got an iteration in there. It says, hey, I don't care how many times you've changed this file in the last millisecond. I'm tracking each of those changes separately. So it can now get all of the precision that is required no matter how fast your network interlink is. So if we've got some of the community out there that's running VMware ESX and you're using NFS v4 and you've noticed these kind of strange intermittent issues, those are always the most fun to track down. Do us a favor, give 2510.2.1, give this hotfix a shot and see if this corrects that issue. See if you can try to force it to surface, because we believe we've actually got it sorted this time. I'm a pretty big fan of this. I'm really happy with the work the engineering team did. And shout out to the member of our community who sort of gave us some assistance and helped by dumping some logs to us to track down that root cause. We really appreciate that. And it's great to see that sort of community teamwork going on here, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And those are the hardest things to solve, again, where it's intermittent at best and you can't quite find ways to surface it reliably. Oh, it's such a pain in the rear to an engineer.
Exactly. The hardest part is when it's like you have to beat on something for 2 hours just to get the chance of a failure. It makes those test cycles so much longer and so much harder to surface. So again, thank you very much to the community member who gave us the assist on that one and was willing to share their logs and some debugs from not just the TrueNAS machine, but did some redacting and shared it from one of their clients as well. So we got another big bit of news here, Chris, that maybe we want to share with the community. So I will let you handle this one.
Sure. So regarding smart, obviously that's been a controversial topic in the community for a while. Some of the changes we made in 2510. We just want to let you know we're not going to go into all the details today, but we do have some plans pending for how to add some better visibility and light command and control of smart into the 26 release. Now, we'll have more details on that as we get a little closer to the 26 beta, but we're expecting it'll give enough back in regards for our home lab community who gets the comfort out of being able to run those short and long tests, parse the results, all that good stuff. So hoping to see those changes go live here soon. Those will get announced once they land in the Nightlies. I'll probably be adding some capability to the experimental MCP connector we talked about last week as well. So you could point your LLM at it and then do some analysis of the more gory smart logs and details as well as you wish. Actually, I think LLMs might actually be pretty useful for that use case too, where it can go and kind of make sense of some of the jargon and sift through some of the quirks and all that good stuff, and hopefully give you more meaningful telemetry. But anyway, more to come on that. Again, stay tuned. We're not going to get into all the details yet until we can show you exactly what landed.
Exactly. That's going to be something that I imagine is going to be discussed fairly to no extent in the comments. We will put a thread up in the forums as well for you to share your comments and your opinions on this one. But again, give us a little bit here while we sort of structure out, and then we're going to share you some more details, as Chris said, as we get closer to TrueNAS 26, the first beta.
Absolutely. Okay, and then some other exciting news this week. Let's get into the Proxmox TrueNAS side as well. I think we did some new things, and a few of you have already noticed because we see people starting to look at GitHub. But tell us about that, Chris. What's this new plugin we have?
Absolutely. So what we have done is we actually reached out to a community member who had been creating an official plugin for Proxmox under the name of Warlock Sino. So we reached out to Mr. Warlock there, and we asked him if he would be interested in, bringing this property sort of on board as the official TrueNAS Proxmox plugin. So it is now under our GitHub umbrella there, which you can see under github.com/TrueNAS/TrueNAS Proxmox plugin. It's an official plugin. It is ready for community testing, and we are currently going through the process with Proxmox to get it validated for enterprise use, test out things like RDMA functionality and our use with our HA systems and failover. What this is a way to extend Proxmox's ZFS over iSCSI functionality that previously did not work very well with TrueNAS Scale because it required the use of an iSCSI target that we didn't use. Proxmox didn't know how to communicate with SCST. It didn't know how to do our provisioning through our API. So this plugin is basically a nice API wrapper that translates Proxmox's calls for, please create me a new disk to back this VM into TrueNAS API calls. It's extending all that functionality. So it allows you to do all of the native Proxmox behaviors. You've got your snapshots, you've got thin provisioning, you've got automated disk resizing. You can handle iSCSI and NVMe over Fabric in this one. It's got multipath support, integrated health checks. It's a very, very robust way to expose all those functionalities of TrueNAS into your Proxmox system. It's been very beneficial. I've been testing this out for quite some time. Even before we brought it on, it was one of the things that sort of piqued my interest, especially in reaching out and saying, "Hey, this is a good piece of software." We think it's going to be really beneficial, especially for those of you who, as a juxtaposition, who, like I said, are customers or are community members running VMware at the start of the episode. This is now for those of you who have left VMware and said, "Hey, maybe I'd like something that's a little bit easier to provision my storage." So this is something that's been going pretty well, Chris. We've got some of our internal developers working on this. There's been quite a flurry of activity of late on that GitHub repo even.
Yeah, we have a handful of internal developers who use this as well, and they use Proxmox in conjunction with their TrueNAS. So it's good to see this kind of come to maturity and happen and have something officially under the TrueNAS umbrella, which is great to see. And we'll talk about it more in the future as it goes through kind of its maturing phase and gets that enterprise acceptability, gets through Proxmox testing, all that good stuff. But yeah, good first steps. Excited. Thank you. This is a good collaboration with a community member. We really appreciate the effort to make this happen. And again, I've seen, because we're seeing people go on there and star the repository and stuff. So some of you guys are nosy and really do pay attention to what's going on our GitHub repos. So hopefully you're already testing it. You're having some success. We'd love to hear in the comments or on the forums if you have any feedback or specific issues, or just any info you can give us about what the experience was like using it. That's good or bad, frankly. So send it our way.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity just to sort of showcase the kind of cooperation that we can get, not just between ourselves and our members of the community, but within open source in general. Because again, Proxmox being open source makes it really easy to say, hey, let's look at their API endpoints. Let's look at the best way to work on these. And just from somebody's idea of, hey, let's consume a couple APIs, let's understand them, and let's build a Proxmox or a plugin to sort of glue them together. I think it's a great opportunity to say, hey, you don't necessarily need to be closed source to have something that's going to work out really well. I'm excited about the future of this and the collaborations we can do.
I am curious to hear from others, though, if there's people using any other virtualization solutions we should be paying attention to as well. I know internally here we have quite a bit of XCP-ng deployed, and we play with that. That works quite well. TrueNAS, we've been using that actually for many, many years prior to the whole Broadcom fiasco. And so I am curious what other things people run and if there's any additional integration work that we think should happen if there's interest. So,
open source,
leave your comments below.
An open source company using open source software internally? Well, I never, Chris.
Kind of weird, right? I know. Strange. Yeah. But yeah, you'd be surprised. We use a lot of things open source internally. So it's good stuff.
Hey, let's have a little bit of a chat here, though. We've got some, there's been a lot of app updates, I think, that are staged up recently. And people might be wondering, hey, everything seems to have updated itself again. What's going on? And what's this big change that's happened? Why did all of my apps suddenly say that there was an update, but maybe there didn't seem to have been there. So we've done some catalog updates. So what did we do for this big push here, Chris?
So these are real infrastructure updates. So if you've been a long time listener here, you may recall when we've talked some of the early days about the transition from Kubernetes to Docker. And at the time, I said it multiple places, multiple times about, hey, this is just the beginning. There's going to be, as time goes on, more things that evolve in the app ecosystem, more Docker functionality added. Well, this is the opening salvo and some of those next steps going forward. So we'll link to it here. You're welcome to go look. Again, if you're nosy on GitHub, maybe you've already seen this. But we've started landing some networking updates to the app's infrastructure. Well, what does a networking update mean? Well, what it means is really this first step is we're adding awareness to our apps catalog about Docker internal networking. So what that means is if you have Docker networks created, say you've already made them via the CLI, you use other tools like Dockage, for example, you can now deploy your TrueNAS apps from our catalog and select which of those networks to bind to, which is very useful for kind of more advanced setups if you want to restrict certain apps to talking to certain other apps, put them on their own private networks, all that good stuff. Now, this doesn't happen easily or overnight or for free. These are complicated things to go get in a nice apps catalog infrastructure. So hence you're seeing some of this back-end churn as we're making the changes. And it's not all apps yet. If you look at the pull request, you'll see we're doing them in stages where it's like we do a dozen here, a dozen there, and we're kind of working through the catalog because we got quite a few apps these days. It takes time to get them all done. But the goal is at the end of the day, we'll have all the apps and the catalog primed for this functionality. So of course, what's the next thing you ask? I can already hear you saying, yeah, but how do I make these? I don't want to go do it at the CLI or use Dockage. Totally makes sense. I want to do it natively myself. So we also have a ticket in progress for that as well. I'm not expecting this to land in 26. This is more likely looking like a 27 thing. But the goal will be that we have full Docker network CRUD through the UI as well. So you don't need to go use the CLI and Dockage. Down the road, again, crawl, walk, run here, and it'll keep getting more involved and better as time goes on. You will be able to go into the TrueNAS apps UI and say, great, I'd like to create a Docker network. I'd like to manage it. Let's pin these apps to these networks. Let's remove from these networks. Let's create, let's attach that tail scale to this network and route things through that. You'll be able to do a lot more interesting isolation with the apps catalog, which is cool. And again, a bunch of you have already found workarounds and people are doing this a myriad of different ways, but we're trying to bring at least a stable, sane framework to do this a little bit more structured in our apps catalog going forward. So again, good news. It's something people have asked for since the early days, and it's nice to be able to report we're seeing some progress on that now, and more to come. Keep an eye on it. There's going to be some churn in the app catalog for at least a little while as we make these changes.
Yeah, and I know I think we've tried to make it a little bit more clear in some of those version updates when we say we're doing a catalog update of the app itself. of the underpinning framework versus this is a new version of the app that's coming down from upstream. I think we've tried to sort of make that a little bit more visible in our
Mhm.
our latest versions. It's probably going to improve
We
a bit
did.
more in 26 as well.
We did. It labels them differently in the Nightlies, Chris, if you haven't seen that yet, where it labels things as there's a revision available, which is different wording than there's a new version available. Again,
Yeah.
slight distinction, but if you pay attention to it, you'll notice. That's to give you the indication of, okay, the app itself hasn't had a version bump. So Plex is still the same version, but we're pushing an infrastructure update to the app. Now, you can make a choice now. Do you need to install that update? No. If your app's running and you're happy with the version of Plex and you're good with how it runs and there's no new features you need there, great. But if you're one of these guys where it's like, ooh, I do want the infrastructure update because I want to be able to attach that to the Docker network, or sometimes that infrastructure update might have nothing to do with Docker networks. It could be that we added a new checkbox to the wizard for that app to turn on or off some feature that has to be set at runtime. Cool. That's when you would go get that revision. If you care about that checkbox, you now have it available and can use it. A lot of reasons we'll push those.
Yeah, it's mostly like the UI updates, things that maybe used to require a manual environment variable parameter set as now a toggle or a drop down or a select or something like that. It's that would be your revisions as opposed to your versions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you have to push those. Again, there's no way to just silently apply those and do them in the background. That would be kind of disruptive potentially to people if they saw their apps flapping up and down and didn't know why. So we are going to at least flag them and give you the choice on when you want to click the button to go into play.
Yeah. Just quick little side notes on apps there. There was a little bit of some controversy that was stirred up this past week over one app that was in the catalog. I believe that was called Huntarr. We did get the notification on that one, and that one has been pulled out of the catalog now. So if you do notice that there is something that is particularly off about a given app, or there's some security issue that needs to be brought to our attention, I mean, please do let us know directly, and we will try to jump on those as quickly as possible. We always are interested in protecting everybody as best as we can, and if we see something like that sneak into a community app, we certainly want to make sure that is cleared up as quickly as we can get it. It is one of those things, though, you do have to be careful about which apps you're running. Take a look at them. Just because something has been showing up on popular trending, whether it's on the Y Combinator, Reddit, whatever. Take a look at the app and just say, do I trust this with the access that I'm going to grant it? And just give it that little moment of thought. I don't run a whole lot of apps myself. I'm pretty picky about what I want to run on my system, and some of them I keep degrees of separation.
I run more than I probably should, but that's just how I roll. I mean, I think we've been through some of these on previous episodes. Actually, one of my favorite ones right now is Mealie. I don't know if you've seen this one,
Yeah.
Chris, but it's a recipe, application. So I can go and how you go to all these websites these days and it's like, here's a cool recipe and you want to make it. And it's like 22 pages long.
Here's
18
my
of them are ads.
Here's my life story before I give you your recipe.
Story before you actually get the freaking ingredients and all this and that. And so I copy and paste those URLs into Mealie. It parses it and does all the work for me. And then I just get a nice clean recipe. So when I'm at the grocery store, I can just say, okay, I got that. Great. I can go home and cook. It's fantastic. So again, is it an enterprise app? No, but is it one of those little home lab things that makes me happy? Absolutely, it does. That, and then I've talked about Jelu as well. That was one I was really happy to help bring over. We have a huge book catalog at the house. And so my wife and I use that one all the time because every time we buy new books to add to our personal library, we scan the ISBN on the back and it gets added to our catalog. Because when you hit a certain threshold of 5,000 plus books you have on your library shelves, it's very easy to double buy where it's like, did I buy that one yet? I know I wanted to. Do I have a copy on my shelf? And so I could be at the bookstore and just pull it up and go, it's on my shelf already. Sweet. Don't need to rebuy it.
Yeah. Well, Mealie sounds interesting. I know I'd experimented with Grocy in the past. I think that was what they called that one, GROCY. Mealie sounds like it's interesting because it's probably a little bit more aligned for what you just want to do at your house, which is go, hey, I'm looking for something to make. What do I have the ingredients for? And let's figure it out. But yeah.
Well, that, and I've gone and typed all the family recipes into it too. So instead of having the little index cards sitting there, which are all like faded and barely readable at this point, like they're digitally kept so I can give them to my kids someday and then they can say, that was a great recipe, or I'm never going to make that again. I hated it when my mom and dad made that, which is fine. That's life. But anyway, yeah, please, again, do run your apps. I will put a quick bug out to folks, though. So we don't get typically a lot of community involvement on the development side of TrueNAS, middleware, UI. We don't see as much engagement there, with the exception being the apps catalog. That's an area we do see a lot of community engagement on, and that's a good thing. And I want to encourage more of that. So if you're looking for a way to get involved and kind of be part of the open source ecosystem, the app catalog is a great way to kind of dip your toe in and help out. Like the thing is, there's just frankly too many apps out there in the wild out of the millions of potential Docker containers. And we cannot possibly, even with all the resources I could throw at it, get them all in the catalog and maintain them all and all that. It does require a larger community to go and keep a real good and robust set of applications available that a lot more people want to use. So again, it's pretty straightforward. It's easy to get involved and test. We have quite a few people doing that already. So thank you from the bottom of our heart. We appreciate that. And it's welcome to more. So please hop on there. It's on the GitHub repo, which we linked to previously. You're welcome to get engaged, open pull requests, or at very minimum, get involved by just reviewing the incoming pull requests. If a new app shows up, test it, let us know it works, give us feedback, or suggest if there's things we can do to improve it.
Excellent. Yeah. Well,
okay.
I think that about wraps it up for our show today. We're keeping it a little bit brief, and hopefully you're okay with that, and you stuck with us through to the end here. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Again, so the TrueNAS 2510.2.1 hotfix is out now. Go ahead and give that a download, patch up your system again. If you were, losing your network team on the last one, give it a shot and you should be good to go this time. Please, again, do those usual YouTube things. Although if Chris is threatening me with a new laptop, I might not necessarily complain if he's going to give me one of those anyways. But do give us that like and subscribe regardless. Feel free to sound off in the comments below over on our forums at forums.truenas.com. Shoot us an email at t3@truenas.com. And thank you again for tuning in. Chris and I will see you next time.